You're listening to How I See It, hosted by Han. You guessed it, that's me. I am here to motivate and inspire you with guests from all different industries and backgrounds. So get ready for personal stories of success, of growth, full of highs and lows, and of course, unapologetic realness. This is How I See It. You guys, I'm so excited because I have Aliza here today, Aliza Shapiro. She is a psychotherapist and the founder of Therapy in the City. She supports patients that struggle with depression, anxiety, OCD, and other disorders. She's been featured in People, Glamour. She's on certified board. She's done work at Harvard. I'm so excited to have her and to just get into it. So welcome to the podcast.
So excited to be here. Let's do this.
Let's do it. I have to ask, I feel like in another life I was a therapist. What would you say brings people the most into your office, like into therapy?
People, I think, come to therapy when their life has reached a breaking point, or when there's a breaking point inside of themselves that they no longer really want to tolerate, which to me is a little sad because I wish people came to therapy long before then.
Before it.
To do like preventative work versus we're in crisis work. Like imagine you never went to a doctor until you were like bleeding out.
Yeah.
That would never happen. That would be like the worst medical system in the world.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people end up coming when something is feeling so wrong that they're like, I don't want to keep going like this.
Yeah. And surface level wise, like, is it, because it's always, I feel like a surface level situation or a surface level reason that like always roots back to something. Would you say it's like mostly relationships? Like, is that usually it?
Breakups for sure is a huge one, or people not being able to find the love that they want and know they deserve, but just can't seem to grasp it. Professional confusion and just feeling kind of despondent or empty or not having meaning in life. There's so many things.
The first time I stepped into therapy and then now being back in again, because I do think it's like an in and out thing for sure over time. But now that I'm back, it's always around something that is actually just like a deeper wound of some sort. I think most recently it was about confusion over being stuck over a guy, but like obviously it's not about the guy. And would you say that like your job as a therapist is to illuminate what that wound kind of is?
Completely. I think you were a therapist in a past life, girl.
I think so. It's probably a good thing. I would get too like attached.
Like wrapped up in it. Yeah, that's like the first thing they have to teach you in grad school. They're like, here's how you don't take your work home. But I think that's spot on. It's our job to point out what people's patterns are, give insight. It's like how you got here. It's not just about this breakup. It's about your attachment wounds and your relationships, your relationship patterns that you've noticed over and over again and things like that.
Take me back. I feel like every single therapist and coach or practitioner that sat in the seat does their work because it was rooted kind of in their own healing. Where did you grow up and like what did that kind of healing look like for you? Why did you start pursuing this work?
I love this question because everyone's like, did you always know you wanted to be a therapist? And I'm like, no, literally not. I thought therapists were so weird. I remember my parents tried to send me to therapy when I was a kid and I'm like, I'm not going. One time I just like walked out. I'm like, this isn't not for me. I gotta go.
Because I think like the rhetoric is like there's something wrong with me. And I think that's like pretty deep because I think it's still why people feel that they shouldn't go, or also maybe like why you are in therapy. I think a lot of the work I've had to do has been realizing that like I don't need to like fix. I can't like force myself to fix.
And especially when we were young, like the world was not as caught up as it is now.
Yeah, no, definitely
in terms of mental health. It was super weird and it was super stigmatized and I felt really weird. We've made a lot of progress, which is good. I still feel like we have a ways to go, but we're doing much better in that department. But I didn't always know I wanted to be a therapist. I definitely always had like really big feelings and nowhere to put them or no way to fully understand them. And then the more I started learning about psychology in undergrad and grad school, the more I was just totally drawn to it.
And when you say you had like big feelings, do you mean like you couldn't like regulate like your emotions when you were younger around your feelings, or you just felt like deeply and there was nowhere to like put it?
I think it was more that I felt very deeply and I didn't necessarily have an environment that understood those deep feelings or knew how to guide me in terms of processing them.
Yeah.
And then obviously as we become like teenagers, that like ends up showing up in different ways. But for me, it was always just like being so much more deeply feeling than the rest of my family and like even a lot of my friends and not knowing exactly what to do with it. But it wasn't until I started learning again, all my courses in undergrad, grad school, things like that I'm like, wow, this is wild. Why don't people know this? Why don't they teach us this? And this is actually arguably the most important thing any of us can learn in life, the skill of how to understand the beauty of your emotions and the power of your feelings and how to let them direct you towards who you are and what you want to do in this world.
Yeah.
So when I started learning it, I'm like, I don't think I could do anything else.
Well, and I think especially at that age, like when you already feel like, I guess like the black sheep for lack of a better word, or like you feel different, I think it makes it worse. It makes like almost like the mental health issues like thrive.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something called the biosocial theory, which basically describes that there are some people that come to this world and are just born more genetically predisposed to big feelings. The same way some of us are born more athletic or more geared towards like math, science brains versus history and arts brains. And some of us are just born with bigger feelings and more of a sensitivity towards them.
That's so interesting you say this, because I feel like a lot of my mental health issues were rooted in trauma, and a lot of mental health resources are for that.
Yeah.
And I think it probably makes the people who struggle with their mental health and haven't maybe been through intense levels of trauma really confused and also very alone in their journey, because they're like, what the fuck is wrong with me?
Yeah, 100%. 100%. So many of the people that I see are like, well, I definitely see the people who've gone through trauma, big T, little t, for sure. But then there are the people who are like, I can't point to one thing in my life that royally messed me up. I can't. But I feel this way, or I don't feel anything at all. I feel numb. Why? Or I'm constantly being bombarded by my brain. Why? And that's a big part of it. We don't have to have gone through something traumatic. Obviously, that's something we can point to. But if we haven't, it doesn't mean that we get off scot-free in terms of our feelings and our thoughts.
Yeah. When do you think you realized that about yourself?
I genuinely think it was when I started like learning about it. I actually studied abroad for 2 years after high school, which was so interesting. And that's when I started learning concepts of spirituality, psychology, and kind of like tying it all together. And I'm not joking. I was like floored. I was like, I can't understand why they don't teach us this. Okay, we have like intro to psych in high school, but that's not actually telling us these important things about how our brains work and our bodies and our minds and everything, how they kind of work together. So when I started learning and I started realizing that there were answers to these questions that I was having, I think that's when I started putting myself in this, not box, but in this category of people that were just born more emotionally deep.
What do you think was like the most impactful piece of knowledge that took you from just being interested in like pursuing it for your own like selfish reasons to like actually wanting to pursue it as a career?
Ooh. That you're not just a result of your experiences and your emotions and your thoughts. It's that you actually have an ability to change them. And when I started using that to change my own life and actually seeing results and actually seeing my life start to change in a beautiful way, I felt like I have to teach this to others too.
That is probably the thing that like gets in the way, I think, of most people like actually pursuing more and like actually healing. They feel prisoner to whether it's their trauma, their experience, their mental health. They don't think they have autonomy in choosing. And of course, you know, there are levels, but I do think that a lot of the issues we have, we do have the power to kind of switch. And I know in my case, and I know that like you read that Substack of mine about like depression and
it was so good.
Thank you. Yeah. But I do think that was a huge part of my own healing. It was realizing that like I was perpetuating my own misery and like, you know, these things happened, but like they don't have to be my story forever. I don't need to continue to like be a victim to them. I think it's really powerful when you understand that. I also think it's way easier said than done.
For sure.
What is the first step to kind of being in a space where you can start to believe that? Because I do think it takes something, and I think maybe it's trying, but is there something you do with patients and clients to actually get them to see like the hope in that?
Well, sometimes the first thing I do is actually tear down a lot of what they are doing. And I point out how much they're trying to control in their life that they actually have no control over, like, period. You don't control your parents. Nobody gets to choose before we get here who our parents are.
Yeah.
You don't control so much of your even like your physical image. You don't control your genetics. You don't control where you were born, how you were raised. Like basically all of life you don't control. So stop trying.
Yeah.
But then once you stop trying to control all the things that you can't, now you're left with all this energy. And once you see that you have this energy, and now you can use it for the things that you actually can control, which is what goes on in your brain. Not the first thought, but the second thought. How you deal with your emotions. Not just what emotion comes up, but what do I do with this feeling? So once we stop trying to control all the things that we can't, we have the energy to now control the things that we can. So before I try to give people hope, I'm like, let's just break this part down.
Yeah.
Because it's not that you don't have energy to change, it's that you're misplacing it.
Well, I think people underestimate how difficult it actually is. I think when it like doesn't work, they're like, oh, well, I must not be capable.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that like, no, it's actually incredibly hard for me. Like it was realizing that like, oh, like when people say you can change your thoughts, it's not like this. It's not like quick, like a snap. It's like a constant every single day when a thought comes in, trying to choose something differently. It's a long, long process, and it's still a process.
If therapy is too easy, it's probably not right for you.
Yeah. No,
You're probably not doing it right.
Or you're performing your way out of it.
You're performing, you're trying to be your therapist's favorite client, whatever. It's not easy. It's really hard. You need to have a lot of patience, a lot of grace. And one of my favorite phrases that I use a lot with my own self, my own inner growth, is begin again. Because we will always fall. We will always mess up. We will always fail. And that's not the point. We're human. We're going to. But it's when we know how to begin again, that's when we're really doing the work.
That's so good. You said, like, I think I read it somewhere on your socials, but I thought it was so good. So I wrote it down. You wrote, your brain changes when you challenge it, not when you overwhelm it.
Yes.
What did you mean by that? Because I think it has to do with neuroplasticity.
100%. So in the pursuit of growth, you're always going to feel uncomfortable. So discomfort, not an issue. If you're uncomfortable, you're probably doing something right. But if you're constantly uncomfortable or constantly overwhelmed, you're bombarding your brain with too much information, you're actually setting yourself into shutdown. And your prefrontal cortex can't do any work. When you give yourself the right amount of change, you kind of go right beyond your window of tolerance. That's when you actually say, your brain says, okay, here's something new and it's different, it's uncomfortable, but I can handle it. That's where you want to be. You do that thing again and again and again until it becomes kind of like rote. And then you add one more thing and then one more thing. That's how you know you're changing right.
Yeah, because I think a lot of people talk, again, like about this idea that like you can change your thoughts. You have the power to change your thoughts. You have to challenge what you know to grow. But again, I think we're all trying to find this like Band-Aid effect. And so when it's not quick, or when we can't like slide from A to Z instead of going A to B, it becomes very frustrating and people give up.
Yes. And that's the begin again part. Whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's trying to meditate, whether it's, trying to label your emotions in the moment, you have to give it, I'd say like 2 weeks to 40 days, and just like really do that. Let that be your only focus, your only goal, and then make a decision about whether or not it works.
Well, and I liked your point about like control and like feeling like a lot of the anxiety in uncomfortability and in this phase of trying to like rewire the brain, we'll say, is this feeling of lack of control. But I've found that like I actually have like more autonomy than I think. Like when we're in a place where we think we, don't have control, we actually like kind of do. And in moments that we think we have control, we actually kind
really
of don't.
Yeah.
Is that just a way people are coping with uncomfortable feelings?
I think people really try to avoid not knowing how something is going to go. That's very scary for our subconscious. It's very scary for the parts of us deep down that maybe were scared in a really big way when we were younger and never really coped through that properly. So I think a lot of adult life is training our emotions and training our bodies to say it's okay to be in the unknown.
Yeah.
I can handle it.
Is it interesting, like, being in a space where you see so many different types of people and from all different ages, all genders, you kind of see the similarities in all of it.
Yeah.
And even though everyone thinks like, I don't want to say that they're so special, but they're like such a victim in their story. And not to say they're not, but I do find that, and it's a huge reason why I started the podcast, that like listening to so many people's story is so healing because it's the reminder that like we're not alone in our struggles, almost in a way that's kind of like humbling.
Yeah.
Because you're like, even for me, like I'll be listening to like a podcast or something and I'm like, oh my God, I'm miserable in my life in this current moment. And this person is talking about getting on the other side of something that's way worse than what I'm going through right now. But it's the same feeling and we're all going through the same things. And I think there's comfort in that.
Totally. And sometimes I'm like, I just want to get you guys all in a room. Because you're all telling me I'm the only one. I'm your craziest client. And I'm like, guys, you just need to sit together and see that everybody's kind of going through a similar thing, which takes away the loneliness for sure.
Yeah.
And really increases the humanity. But for myself too, I was listening to a podcast recently from someone that I really look up to and respect. And I'm like, he's got it all together. He for sure does. He's the smartest man I could probably point to. And he was describing some of these phenomenons that go on in his brain and how they're really debilitating sometimes. And I'm like, wait, but like I have that too, you know?
Yeah.
And obviously I'm a therapist. I'm immersed in this work all day. But when I was hearing somebody else, and even more so somebody who I really respect, talk about his experience of like his intrusive thoughts and his self-doubt and his need for perfectionism, even though he's in the wellness healing space, that still comes up. I'm like, okay, I can breathe easy knowing that like, even though I'm doing all this work, I'm not the only one that still struggles as well.
Yeah, I think there's like a level of acceptance too, right?
Yeah.
That comes with like realizing that like it just kind of like it gets maybe easier in some ways, but then something else pops up and then like it never stops. Like the healing journey never stops. And I think, you know, depending on the day, that's like a blessing or a curse. But I
Yeah.
think it's all again like back to choice, like how we choose to see it.
Yeah. And I would say it never stops, but it gets a lot lighter.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have such a better relationship with my healing now than I did 5 years ago, 10 years ago, for sure. And it feels more of like a curious, gentle, loving self-exploration than like a jackhammer that it used to, that I'm like, I've got to uproot this part of me that I just can't stand. Now I'm like, oh, I'm noticing this new part of me that I really want to hone and I really want to bring out my best self in, which is like a totally different kind of healing.
Yeah, I mean, I assume it's like with time and like proof over again that like you can get through things. But
Yeah.
do you think it's also like a gradual acceptance that like this is kind of just a part of the human experience? Like, I don't know, like I feel like for a while I thought that like I was supposed to like get to a place where I'm like, this is happy. I'm no longer anxious. I'm no longer depressed. I'm not like struggling with the traumas. Like I'm good. And I think I've just realized over time that like the quicker you can accept that that is like kind of never going to happen, though we heal and like things get easier to carry, the like burden of the human experience I don't think goes away. The moment I realized that life actually did become like more joyful and more peaceful.
People have a hard time accepting that all of life is not going to look like joy.
Mm.
And we have this weird fixation on joy. And we are all chasing it all the time. And we're all trying to avoid things that will detract from it all the time, which puts us in this terrible rat race of like only seeking joy, being terribly afraid and thinking things are dangerous if they don't necessarily bring us immediate joy. Like, that's not the human experience. We have joy, we have sadness, we have grief, you know, we have shame. These are all parts of the human experience, like you're saying. And if we allow them all to be, then all of life can be worth living, not only the happy parts of it.
Yeah, that's so powerful. You said on your socials, and I think also when we were talking on the phone the other day, that emotions aren't the thing that causes distress, but avoiding them is. Do you think this is wrapped up in that too?
For sure. I mean, it's the same root. People don't want to feel uncomfortable, which makes sense naturally.
Yeah.
Right? We're protectors and we protect our own selves and our own peace, and we walk around a lot in life in like self-preservation mode.
Yeah.
But it's kind of gone haywire. And it makes it very difficult to allow ourselves to actually just sit with a feeling or like lean into a feeling. And when emotions don't get felt, they don't just like disappear like we would like them to. They actually sit in our bodies and fester and grow and germinate, and they come out in these like really ugly ways that we would have never anticipated.
Yeah. While we're all trying to like avoid because we want joy so badly.
Exactly.
And then it ends up like deteriorating from the inside out. It's annoying and almost frustrating when you realize that you're feeding into the thing that you've been wanting to heal.
Yeah, if we didn't have good models of emotions growing up, if we didn't have parents who sat us down and said, hey, Hannah, I see that you had a really hard day. Can you tell me about it? I'm noticing that there's sadness on your face today. What happened, right? Like, how many of us had parents like that? Bless them,
gosh.
but like, no.
I'm like, is this real? I guess I guess I can do that if I decide to become a parent.
If you ever decide to become a mom and you've done this work, you better believe that's how you're going to talk to them. You know, like you wouldn't have it any other way. You'll see them in pain, or you'll see them suffering, or you'll see them crying in a corner. And you're going to have a natural pull to say, like, I know that feeling. I've been there once. I was there yesterday, for goodness sake, right? Like, I want to talk this child through it. So we didn't exactly have a roadmap for how to feel. We didn't have a roadmap for noticing an emotion and tending to it and caring for it and then getting to the other side. Because, by the way, feeling feelings is not all like doom and gloom.
Yeah.
You feel it, you cry, you process, you integrate, you move on. And like you actually can get to joy so much more quickly.
Yeah.
It's just that we're not so skilled at that. And we end up feeling our feelings when they're at like the brinks. And that's why we feel like it's such an arduous process.
Well, and it's interesting because I feel like you can be like, you know, and especially in this day and age with the intellectualization of mental health and healing, especially in the sphere we're in, like you can be the most quote unquote self-aware person yet not be emotionally available. And I think I even found myself there where I'm very committed to doing the work, and I am proud of the courage that I've like extended at each chapter of my life to like look in the mirror. But also I think that like while being self-aware, I've like neglected this part of like, you have to be able to feel to be able to move forward.
Or maybe that's just the next step for you.
Yeah. Well,
maybe all that self-awareness led you to this place, and now you can take it from here to here.
yes.
And then this is where the transformation happens, but you need to know it in certain ways up here first so that you feel things differently than you did when you were younger.
Well, and I think where people get stuck is that they stay above,
Yes.
you know, the neck, and they think their work is done.
Yes.
Do you feel that that happens in your office as well? I'm assuming you get a lot of like high achievers too as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's people who actually have incredible brains, and they're so good at thinking. And I love working with them because I see their neurons firing in front of me, and I'm like, this is amazing. We're doing so much right now. But then there's an even deeper challenge for actually turning that part off and finding the other side of our minds, because we all have a rational mind and we all have an emotion mind, but it's being able to switch out of that logical place and into the feeling place, which sometimes people have never done consciously on purpose in their entire lives.
I'm like raising my hand, me. Well, and it's so frustrating and again, uncomfortable. It's incredibly uncomfortable, but I think because of the work I had done in like my depression and a lot of that stuff, it prepared me for the frustration of the journey, which is that I can't outproduce my way out of this.
Yeah. And like, be frustrated. Great. Feelings are messy. And I think that's what a lot of the people who are high achievers and have really powerful minds struggle with. Like, okay, just tell me how to feel and I'll feel it. Boom, boom, boom. And it's like, this is not a PowerPoint. You have to get messy. You have to let things fall apart. You have to let yourself be a little bit out of control, which I know is terrifying. And I promise we will get to the other side.
How do you help your patients and clients who are there and maybe don't know how to do that? Like they can hear and intellectualize, like, yeah, I know, okay, like I'll surrender. I'll like try to be a little messy, but like, what if you don't even know how to be messy? Like, what are some steps people can take to kind of like help maybe open the doors to let emotion out?
One of the things that I tell people is to slow down the whole cycle of emotions in the moment. So emotions are actually a very scientific cycle. We have a trigger, we have an automatic thought, we have sensations that get fired in our bodies. We start to like associate it with like a certain emotion feeling, and then boom, we're ready to act or say something or avoid. That's like the cycle of an emotion scientifically. When we're starting to feel feelings, the idea is to slow the whole thing down. Before you interpret, before you decide, before you act, before you solve, just slow it down. What is this discomfort? Don't ask why. You don't have to know why or how it got here. Just what is it? What does it feel like for me? And you'll see people start fidgeting. People start like, okay, next. What's the next one? I'm like, no, we're going to stay here for a sec. And then you feel it in your body. You feel it in your thoughts. You don't put any answers to it. You don't, okay, I know that's not actually true. I don't care. I'm not talking to your logic brain right now.
Yeah.
Let's talk to your emotion brain. What does it feel? What is it afraid of? And it's really just entering this space of in the moment, here and now, what is showing up, and totally removing any logic or any solve or any solution.
So powerful, because I don't think people actually acknowledge the power of the pause.
Yeah.
Like I feel like I always phrase it like that because I do think I found so much power in pausing. And I think for so long I felt like if I don't react right away, I'm going to lose my power. Cause I think that's how it was like in my house growing up. Like if you don't like raise your voice louder or say how you feel immediately, like you're not going to, you're not going to be seen. Yeah. And I think when I realized that there was a power in actually being able to sit and maybe give the other person you're talking to the benefit of the doubt, or even give the moment the opportunity to show you that maybe it's not attacking you, I found so much healing in that because I was able to kind of like hear a couple more voices of logic, maybe, or rational thinking instead of emotional thinking.
Yeah, and integrating the two. And if we think about it, the most powerful people, and I don't mean that like politically, I mean like genuinely, you look at them and you're like, wow, you hold power. They know how to do silence. They They know how to do stillness because that's where all the truth ends up coming up. If we're talking, moving, we're not hearing that intuition. We're not hearing the parts of ourselves and the universe that are speaking to us all the time. And we miss things. We miss really important things. We miss things in our relationships. We miss things in our intuitive signals that we need to know to interpret life. But when we start slowing down, when we create space for silence, when we honor stillness, we actually start hearing all the things that we're really dying to hear.
I love that you brought up slowing down too, because I feel like I mastered this pause, I feel like in my own healing, but I have not mastered the slow down because I think that part is so subconscious and innate for me. I started to notice, especially as I was like back in therapy, that my therapist would have to be like, whoa, 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 whoa,
Yeah.
whoa. Like you just skipped over like 5 intense things.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that I was doing this almost like recite back timeline approach to the things that had happened, not just to like get through the story, but because I wasn't giving, I think it was subconscious, like I wasn't creating space to like feel the things that I was saying.
Yeah.
And so it's easier to just speed past and try to, again, like Band-Aid effect or like jumpstart through the healing instead of actually being like, wow, that did happen. How do I feel about that?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. Like you want to know how to feel a feeling, do that.
Yeah. Well, and I think it becomes difficult when, to your point earlier, like you've never been given maybe the freedom or safety to feel a feeling. Yeah. And I think it can make you, especially people who are like very hyper intelligent, it can make them feel stupid.
Yeah. A lot of shame. Like I should be able to do this. I should know how to do this. And I say back, no, you shouldn't. You're never taught.
Yeah. Do you think that shame is not just, you know, common, but like rooted in a wound of some sort?
So shame and hiddenness are always a pair. So for people who had to hide themselves or had to hide all of themselves, or they were told they were too much, or they take up too much space, or they got lost in the shuffle, their parents had other things that were more important than them. If people had any sort of struggle with invisibility, with hiding, with not being seen, shame is often the emotion that is the result. So when people are asking me about shame, I like to explore that first and just see if that was ever a part of their story. And if it was, they're like, oh yeah, immediately they're like,
yeah,
yes,
everyone's like,
that tracks. And so a lot of people learn shame that way. And then they end up just plugging shame into every time they feel like they've done something wrong.
DBT, that's the kind of work you do with your clients. Can you explain what it is and kind of how spirituality is integrated into it? Because I find it to be really interesting that you are a legit therapist. You know, there's a lot of coaches now, but you are a therapist, but also incorporate spirituality into a lot of the psychology work that you do. And I think a lot of people don't get to hear that perspective and why it's valuable.
Yeah, a lot of therapists are scared of spirituality, and I'm not quite sure why, if I'm being honest. But DBT is a form of therapy that we call a third wave of therapy. So first wave was very behavioral, Pavlovian, ring a bell, dog salivate. It's like that kind of therapy, right? I say do something, do the thing. Second wave is cognitive. You have a thought, change the thought. And if you change the thought, the rest of your emotions are going to follow suit. And that was actually pretty popular for a while. But then what we started to realize is that people who were in pretty significant emotional distress weren't actually capable of changing their thoughts. I mean, I certainly am not able to change my thoughts when I'm in severe distress. So there was a gap in therapy and people weren't getting better as deeply and as efficiently as I think therapists wanted them to. So there started this third wave of therapy, and DBT is a part of that. And it's the kind of therapy that incorporates mindfulness and more spiritual practices with more of a feeling lens to the work. So DBT stands for Dialectical Behavior Therapy. Dialectical means creating space to hold two opposing truths at the same time, which is so beautiful. I know. And then the behavioral piece as well, right? That's the B in behavioral therapy and DBT. It's basically a treatment that allows somebody to reflect, to slow down, to understand what it is that they're emotionally going through at any given moment, and pair that with values-based change. So I'm not just lying on a couch Freudian style for the next 10 years of my life saying, how did I get here? We're saying I need to know who I am. I need to know what my emotions are. I need to know my history so that I can understand how I arrived here. but I'm not keeping it stuck there. I'm also going to pair that with the behavior, with the values that I have in life, and getting myself to be able to reach those goals. And then the spirituality part, I think, is the most powerful part of DBT. And actually, DBT's founder, her name is Marsha Linehan. She is an incredible story too. But one of the things that she did as she was on her own healing journey and exploring therapies and kind of even working through this creation of DBT is she went and studied at a Buddhist monastery.
Wow.
Where she learned all of these mindfulness, meditative, really just Buddhist-based practices that she was like, this is therapy. And none of my patients know how to utilize these skills. And she incorporated that as the foundation of DBT.
Wow.
She created an entire module. There are only 4 modules of DBT. One of them is mindfulness. And it's all based on these principles and these practices. And she says, this is the most foundational part of the therapy. And if you don't have this down, you're not going to be able to do the rest.
So the thing that stuck out the most from what you said, I think it was at the very beginning, the like 2 truths can exist at one time piece.
Yeah.
And it was funny because your reaction was like, isn't that beautiful? And mine was like, ugh. And I do find it to be beautiful while also being like the most frustrating thing ever.
Can you tell me about that? I want to hear about the for you.
Yes, because I think for at least people like me who are like, I feel like constantly trying to find like a smoking gun, like constantly trying to find like the answer or the why or like the high achieving thing, like what can I do to get there? Mm-hmm. The acceptance of I can't explain this, I can't fix this, I can't control this, or like this can be true while also being true is very hard to accept. And I think that's like probably my trauma showing a little bit, but also I think it's just really hard to accept that we can't always fully see or understand. I mean, I think that's faith. I was raised super religious. I think it's changed as I've gotten older. Yeah. But I do think there's an element of faith that's required when it comes to the human experience. And it can be frustrating to not fully understand why, you know, I have to experience this low to be able to experience this high, or that this can be true while also this being true.
What's the feeling behind that frustration? Like if you had to give more color to it, what would that feeling really be when these 2 truths are here that you can't resolve?
I think it's like maybe, like my gut wants to say it's maybe like an avoidance of like what that feeling would mean, you know? Because I think that the surface emotion is like anger and frustration. If I were to tear away the anger, like what's there? Yeah. And I think it's like this sadness, this devastation. I can't articulate fully like why it's there, but I think it's this like need for clarity and this need for like control, I think. And when something is like ambiguous, it feels very like, oh my God, like, of course, it's something I can't fix. It's something I can't solve. It's something I have to sit in.
Yeah. It's something I can't control.
Yeah. But maybe even particularly like something I have to sit in. Because like fixing, I think, is a huge distraction from having to sit in uncomfortable for sure.
Yeah. And does discomfort scare you? Sorry, I'm like putting you on the spot here.
No. Yes, but not in the normal
Tell me
way.
Your way. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because I was talking to like a somatic coach recently on the pod. And I was saying how like, it's interesting how people like the idea of stress and the idea of overwhelm. Yeah. People picture whatever that is for them. Yeah. But not that it can be so different for so many people. Yeah. And I think for me, like being uncomfortable is not hard for me. Being resting or like sitting or like having to like feel is very difficult and uncomfortable. Yeah, I can do very uncomfortable things that other people think are very uncomfortable, but I think it's relative to like what is, you know, uncomfortable for me actually.
So life is going to keep giving you opportunities that are going to force you to rest and to sit in this space. Well, I don't even know about rest. Rest you could actively bring upon yourself, which I think would probably be good for you. But life will keep bringing you situations where you're going to have to sit in that ambiguous space and hold them until you get comfortable in that place.
Yeah. And it's so interesting you say that because I think I've finally surrendered. Like, I think I'm like, okay, no more. I don't want any more of these anymore. I'm just going to force like, not in like an abrasive way, but I'm going to force myself to sit there because like, I don't want to keep learning this lesson over and over again. Like, I feel like I'm the person that like almost will feel a little bit crazy if I see like myself doing the same thing over and over. And I'm like, why am I doing this? And I think I hit this wall where I was like, oh my God, the same thing is popping up with every friend, every guy. Like it's not just the guy or the friend or the parent. Like this is my pattern. And so I think being able to, again, like be brave enough to be like, okay.
I love unknown. To say, I love it. Universe, bring it.
I love that.
Bring the unknown, bring the ambiguity. I don't have to control. You're doing it for me.
Well, you've seen the pros and the reward for embracing it. When I was going through like the lowest of low in my depression and anxiety, like I didn't have that.
Yeah.
So it was so much darker. And I think though this time in my life has been kind of dark, it's not nearly as dark because I can see and like look back and be like, look what came from doing that. Look what came from doing the uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But like, I'm going to go out kicking and screaming a little bit, I think.
As you should. As we all do when we're healing. But I think that's where the spirituality part comes into. It's being able to say there's something greater than me. And even mindfulness is this. There's something greater than my brain that has power. That's running the show that I don't need to control.
Yeah.
And if I trust it, knowing that highs and lows are always going to be a part of life, I will get to exactly where I'm trying to go because I trust that the universe is on my side, even if I don't feel it right now.
Yeah.
And when we have those kinds of beliefs, even if we have to remind ourselves 50 times a day, ambiguity pops up and we're like, bring it, I'm leaning in. Like, I know this, I've smelled this before, I'm going to do it differently now. And that's where healing is. And eventually it becomes something that you actually can look forward to, which is wild to think about right now.
I was saying in a different context how it's like funny how like the things we're so good at in entrepreneurship, like we don't apply to our own healing. And so I think it's about kind of looking at it that way. Like what are some ways that like we can make the uncomfortable like a little bit more safe for us?
Yeah.
And I think for me that's been like, okay, like you push yourself to the most uncomfortable limits when it comes to your business. Like, can you do that for yourself?
Yeah.
You know, where it actually, you know, matters long term.
Yeah. People who, especially people who run anxious or who run high performing, struggle most with uncertainty, with lack of control, and with lack of perfection or accepting that they're in the human experience.
Yeah.
Most of our anxieties boil down to one of those three things.
Yeah.
So you're in good company, Hannah. I'll tell you
God,
that.
I'm not the only one. Well, and again, I think we talked about this on the phone too, and I think this is a really good segue. Do you also feel like it's this level of not being able to accept that maybe like we'll never be like quote unquote content as well? Because I think if you are high achiever or you're successful or you are tacking all the things on the box accomplishment list and you get to that high point and you don't feel the way you thought you would, there's this level of existentialism that goes on where you're like, well, why did I do all of this? Why do I not feel better?
And that's part of the duality. We do the work of our work and we do the work in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when the two are working in tandem, it doesn't matter if you're at step 1 of the goal or step 100 of the goal. There should be a stability and an ease and a presence and an excitement wherever you are on the path of these like external achievements. But when people are working so hard on external things in life without focusing on the internal, there will be a crash and burn. There will. I read a story. Tal Ben-Shahar is a really interesting psychologist. He writes a lot about positive psychology, and in the intros of one of his books, he writes about, I don't remember if it was like an Olympic race or running some sort of marathon that he was training for months to years that he was so excited to do. And he runs this race and he wins. And in that moment, he's on top of the world. It's like, all my hard work, look what I did, look what I put into this race, and I knew it, and I knew I would do it, I knew I would get it. And he's on a high. And he's like, see, it was all worth it, every single bit of work that I did. And the next morning, he wakes up, and he describes in this book having the lowest of lows, this crazy crash and burn, depression like he's never felt before in his life. And he's like, what just happened? Like, this can't be it. If we're all running to achieve things and the second it's over, the joy like evaporates, we're obviously not defining joy the right way, or we're not doing something right because it's not sustainable. And then he writes an entire book about what joy actually is. But to your point, a lot of people who only focus on the external, and it could be very meaningful work, but if they're not focusing on the internal too, there will be an end date.
Kind of going off of that, like, what do you think, like, because it's so relative, and maybe this is like too relative of a question to ask, like based on what people's goals are, but like, what would you say like is like joy? Like, what should people be like trying to work towards? Because to kind of the point of that story and like what I was bringing up, I think that like there's this expectation that like when I'm happy, I'm not going to also be in pain. And when I'm in pain, like I can't also be happy too. And I think those things can, you know, coexist. And I think I can accept that because if not, then like we're all doomed.
Yeah.
But I do think there's this expectation that like happiness doesn't involve the other spectrum of the emotions. So what is actually the type of joy we should be striving for?
First of all, being able to hold the duality of painful emotions and really pleasant emotions at the same time is key. We don't control our life like that. Life is not like Spotify. Next emotion, please. It doesn't work like that. And there will be times where we're in a lot of joy and we're also dealing with a separate struggle. And there will be times where you're in a lot of pain, right? But then there actually are parts of your life that are positive and growth oriented. And if you only honor the pain, right, like you're going to ignore everything else. So we have to be able to hold both. I think a nice way of conceptualizing what kind of joy should we be looking for is an ease and a flexibility moving through your life that it feels pleasant and you feel excited for the things to come and you feel like you can hold on for the parts that aren't so exciting yet.
Yeah.
But more like a space of like, I'm comfortable in my own skin and I'm comfortable in my own world.
Yeah.
I think that's a really healthy place for people to be.
I think for me, it's also been like how quick is my like rebound time? And maybe I've like perfected that to a fault. I need to like stay down a little bit longer, being able to accept that like, kind of like I said in the article that like depression does live in the car.
Yes.
Are you going to let her take the steering wheel?
Yes.
It's about acknowledging that like she's always going to be in the car and that's okay. It doesn't need to be this existential crash out that like depression is popping up. Like that's okay. And being able to acknowledge it and just kind of like bounce back a little bit, I think has been where I have found the sweet spot. Joy and happiness is more like peace, if I were to describe it. Like if I feel peace, like that's good. But I think that's personal to my story because I think I never felt peace for so long.
Yeah.
So to me, I'm like, that's the goal. Like if I can feel just like satisfied and at peace to the best of my ability, you know, without breaking the bounds of human nature and being like a puppet master, then like I'm here for that.
Yeah. I love that definition. I think that's beautiful. And I use that analogy all the time. Like let the emotion in the car, but don't let it be in the driver's seat. And by the way, all of our emotions can be in the car. Like joy can be in the car all the time too, even when depression needs to be riding shotgun. And that's okay. And sometimes our emotions will need more TLC from us. Sometimes I'll tell my clients, like, bring depression today. Like, have it sit right here, give it a hug. Does it need a snack? Ask it what it needs and tell it that it's welcome to join us. It's invited.
I think for someone like me, especially, and I told you this too, that like struggles with like the inner child work and like acknowledging the parts, like I think it's maybe a little bit scary to like bring depression to the front seat. Because you're like, it's, you know, betrayed me so many times before. But like, I think it's about, you know, seeing what you've done again, like looking back at the timeline and having like enough self-trust and confidence to know that like you are in control of the car.
Exactly. The emotion is not inherently dangerous and it's not inherently bad. When we view it as dangerous, then it gets all of its power. It's like, see, I told you, you wake up with me, I'm going to tell you not to get out of bed and I'm in charge. But that's not really the case. The emotion is the part of you, and you are the one that's observing and tending to and loving and caring for the parts, but still saying like, I hear you, depression. I'm going to spend time with you today. Now we're getting up, but let's go on a walk later. And I want to hear what you have to say.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really interesting that you brought up the book by that guy. What was it called? Do you know? Happier?
The Tal Ben-Shahar book?
Yeah. Because I do think that more people need to be talking about like these moments. Yeah. We talked about this lightly on our call, but I do think that people would feel more comfortable entering like the doors of uncomfortability if more people, especially in high standing spots of success, were talking about the discomfort they felt in having to like look in the mirror and realize their identities wrapped around their business or the success or the selling of the company.
Yeah. And I think a huge part of that is being able to say, I could be so successful in one area of my life, and it doesn't necessarily mean I have to be living at that level of functionality across all areas of my life.
Yeah.
Like I can be having a really horrible year personally, emotionally, mentally, and still be killing it at work. Like those two things can exist at once as well. And it doesn't make me a worse person, doesn't make me a worse business owner. It doesn't mean that there's something deeply wrong with me. It's just recognizing that simply because we're high achieving in really big, powerful ways in life does not mean that we're immune to the human experience that everybody else has a permission slip to have too.
Yeah. Do you think that something that helps people is by staying grounded kind of like in the middle of the lows and highs? Like I feel like sometimes, at least in the past, like I would ride the highs too high that like when the lows hit, I would go like way low. I think I put so much charge on like when things were going well, career, relationships, emotional stability, that when like things entered the chat that were not that, it dragged me down like very intensely. But how do you find the balance between like kind of sitting in the middle? Because you also don't want to be like apathetic.
Totally. And I also tell people like you can follow your own emotions leads to a degree. They're there for a reason. If you're going through a really exciting part of your life, like lean into that. Lean in. And if sadness is saying, I need you to give me more time, honor that too. Like you said, the goal is to not get so high that we burn ourselves out in a month.
Yeah.
Or to get so low that we lose sight of the fact that we are okay despite sadness being in the shotgun seat. But I think the expectation to always be in this even-keeled middle ground is not realistic, especially for women. Like even our cycles tell us when we have more energy and when we're more even-keeled. And I think that seasons in life are totally okay as long as we recognize them for just that. Like they're seasons, they're not predictors or forever. Yeah.
I think social media makes it hard too.
Well,
because you're only seeing, I mean, unless you're like us, who's like putting it all out there all the time. And even us, we're keeping some protected.
Yes.
But like, I think in the normal social media scape, like you're only seeing people's joy. We want perfection. We want joy. We don't want to experience discomfort. And then when you see on your phone that everybody is also not experiencing discomfort, I think it further perpetuates this like false illusion that life is not supposed to be low.
Well, here's to you for normalizing these conversations.
Yeah, well, you too, because I love your social media as well. And like everything you share too, especially for women about relationships and dating and how wounds impact the partner we pick.
Yes. And I always try to do it with a spin of like healing is good. It's exciting. It's not horrible. It's not this like terribly painful, daunting task. There's so much lightness to it. But like we also have to just keep things real. Like life is imperfect. Life is terribly messy sometimes.
Yeah.
The human experience has highs and lows, and we're going to be fine as long as we honor all of them.
Yeah. Well, speaking of relationships, I have to bring it up for the girls who are listening. What do you think is the thing that women struggle with the most when it comes to like dating?
I would say the biggest struggle that I've seen with women in dating is self-worth. And I tell people you cannot blame yourself for being attracted to the wrong guys. People are like, why do I keep being attracted to these guys that are so bad for me? We can't control that part, but what you can control is whether or not you stay once they stop aligning with your values. And I think a lot of the women that I've worked with have just struggled with this feeling of like, I'm worthy of a relationship that is genuinely meaningful to me. And by the way, that doesn't mean that it's the standards that everybody thinks it is. He doesn't have to have the perfect job.
Yeah.
Or the perfect height or the perfect resume in terms of where he went to school and all that. Like, the older we get, the more we realize that like stability and emotional availability and kindness is just as important as the excitement and the power and all the other things that feel more naturally attractive for so many of us. He doesn't have to look perfect, but he has to be somebody that knows your worth and is willing to honor you with all of that in mind.
Yeah. And this is maybe a complicated question, but do you think the inability to be able to like leave is the same thing we're talking about when it comes to like the inability to step into discomfort? I think a lot of women know when something is wrong or when someone isn't treating them correctly or when they know this is not their person.
Yeah.
But they can't quit. They can't let go, myself included. We've all been in this situation.
Yes.
But this seems to be a common thread of like awareness not paired with action. And it feels almost impossible.
A lot of us are walking around with attachment wounds that we've never dealt with It's not our fault. It's just our reality. There are 4 main attachment styles. 3 of them are insecure and only 1 of them is secure. So you can imagine how most of us are walking around.
Yeah.
There's anxious, avoidant, and ambivalent, which is a combo. The combo of both. Yes, it's the most fun one.
I know.
I hate you, don't leave me. Wait, come back. Never mind. But but we're walking around with these deeply rooted attachment wounds, and those are not things that are easy to change on our own. We can have all the awareness, all the insight in the world. The guy can be waving all the red flags, but if our attachment traumas are front and center and they've never been touched or dealt with or cared for or healed, they're going to be calling the shots. It's not your adult mind that's staying. It's your child mind that's staying in those relationships. And until you tend to that, it's going to be very hard to extract yourself.
Yeah. I mean, you said so. I have it written here somewhere. You said that like, it's not your feelings that are keeping you, it's your wounds.
Yes.
Is that what you mean by that?
That's exactly what I mean.
It's so powerful. I've done so much attachment work, attachment theory work, and people hear all the time, like avoidant, anxious, whatever.
Yeah.
What is the first step to actually like moving the needle on this stuff though? Like we can identify, we can know, we can even go back and look at the trauma we've been through at a young age, whether it was small t, big T, but like what is actually going to move the needle forward, at least in a small way, maybe for someone listening who's in that situation right now?
So since it's a relational wound, it really pretty much cannot be done alone, if that makes sense. So I tell people like, this is where a self-help book has limitations. So go to therapy.
Yeah.
Go to therapy and deal with your attachment in therapy. You will have to deal with it. Your therapist is going to say something wrong and you're going to be like, screw her, she doesn't get me. And you're going to not want to go back. And then you're going to go back because you know that you're working on your avoidance. Or she's not going to answer your phone, or she's going to have a baby and you're going to have to wait for 6 weeks before she comes back, and your anxiety is going to rear its head and you're going to have to sit with that too. So your relational dynamics will always show up in the therapy room.
That's so interesting.
It's so fascinating. People are like, not me. I'm like, just you wait.
It's so funny you say that, because I feel like even looking back, I've had like maybe I've had 2 serious therapists, couple coaches, and they've all kind of replicated like the same type of relationship.
Yeah.
And I think I'm versed enough now to catch it when I like feel myself getting like sensitive about things, and I'm like, what's that? Like, what's that popping up? Like, why am I feeling abandoned? Or why am I not feeling cared for? Or why does it seem like they have more clients than just me?
Yeah. How dare they? I remember a couple of years ago, I was talking to my therapist, and when I feel like someone understands me, my nature is to just be like, all right, forget it. Like, I don't have time for this. Like, I'm not going to sit here and try to explain.
Yeah.
It's way too deep and way too complicated. And so my therapist, we have an amazing relationship. He really usually gets me like that. I said something and he totally missed the mark, and he like went on a bit of a thing, and I was like, is he serious? Like, I'm like, and I started shutting down. And in that moment, I'm like, Doc, I have to tell you something, and I don't want to, because I'm not upset at you, and I know why you got to that place, but you really missed the mark, and I feel so misunderstood right now. He literally got up and started clapping. He was like, that's it, Aliza. Like, that's for you. Like, that was the work, because you're like, my nature is to just be like, okay, whatever. Like, I'll handle it and move on. I'll deal with it myself.
Like, that's what I thought. Moving on.
Guess nobody does understand me. And in that moment, I had that that repair. And that was such a powerful part of our work.
Yeah, no, I love that you said that, because I actually had a moment like that recently where I was on with my therapist, and we were like, bless her heart, she's like always on with me like till the last possible minute, even though we were like supposed to end 10 minutes before. And like logically, I should be like, wow, like my therapist really cares about me. Like every single week she's willing to like stay on for that extra in between time that she probably just wants to go pee in between appointments.
We do need to do that at some point.
But I'm like, I feel like I should view that as like, oh my gosh, like this person really sees me. They really care for me. They know I need this support.
We don't, that's
she likes me.
He likes you.
But the one time that like she like rushed off the phone, I was like, like I felt so offended. But instead of like, again, to your point, I would normally be like, maybe I'll cancel next week.
Right. Yep.
I don't know what it is. I mean, I think it's like this child, like wounded part of me that's like, I got to make a point or like prove that like, or again, like self-fulfilling prophecy. Yes. Like I knew you didn't care about me. I knew to your whole thing, I know you didn't see me. Like that's why I've been protecting this stuff. I was honest about it the week after.
Amazing.
And it was so healing for me to be honest. Normally I would just kind of, again, like play the part, or I'd pretend it didn't bother me, or I would just like kind of shut down and be like, okay, like this isn't going anywhere. But you know, I've seen the power in being honest and vulnerable, even when it's uncomfortable. Of course, she was like, I'm so sorry. And it's like, no, you actually don't have to apologize because like I'm being honest about it because I actually want to explore what that was about. And I think, again, the surface of that is she doesn't understand me, like that's offensive, like she should be tending to my feelings. But if we were to go a layer deeper when those types of triggers happen, I think that's where like our real work is. And I've seen that so many times. I think it's hard when you haven't had so many of those moments. But again, it takes courage and bravery to be honest and look weak, I think. I think for the longest time, I didn't think that I was like scared of looking weak because like in traditional sense, like when someone would say that, I'm like, no, I can be wrong. I can be wrong. I can be weak. But I think that's the root.
Wrong and hurt, right? Those are two very different things.
Oh, please expand.
Well, wrong is a very logical thing. I just made an incorrect calculation. That's so, you know.
Wrong of me.
Cerebral of me. Yeah, exactly. But hurt means I needed you. I depended on you. I had an emotional experience that was in relation to you. And you have power over me because I care about you.
Yeah.
And so that feeling is a much harder one to express. And that's where true vulnerability lies.
What would you say to someone who's listening right now who's like in the deepest of their healing and they do not see the silver lining, they do not see the light, they want to believe us when we're telling them it gets better, but they just can't fully give into that. It doesn't feel safe to feel that there is hope at the end of this.
I know for myself and a lot of the people that I've worked with too, the darkest periods of life have always brought the most potent and powerful change, but people can never feel it in the moment. So just because you don't feel it right now, it doesn't mean that this season can't catapult you into the most like gorgeous life that you're waiting to live. So know that not feeling it right now or not even feeling the hope right now is actually totally fine and totally normal. You just have to hang in and trust, because I've seen it time and time again. And a lot of people say to me, like, isn't being a therapist the most depressing job? Like, you work with people at their darkest moments. And I'm like, I do, but it's actually I feel the least depressed when I'm doing good work with somebody because I know that there are people out there transforming.
Well, and you see people get to the other side,
And
like time and time again. Probably all who don't believe they're going to get to the other side.
Yes.
I think there's truth in the fact that like if you make a choice and you choose to like step into a place of healing, like you're going to step out eventually.
Yeah. And I think there's a concept that I love to talk about, which is called like borrowed hope.
Ooh.
So if you don't have hope for yourself right now, that's okay. But you can actually borrow the hope of somebody who believes in you. So when you don't have it, borrow it.
I love that. That's so powerful. That also involves like being able to like open up to people around you. I think a lot of people are going through like silent battles. You can't be, especially for someone like me, like I think I'm the person and the friend that like everybody goes to for like advice.
Yeah.
And so it sometimes feels weird to like go to other people when I'm having a hard time. In choking that down, I have found like so much comfort and healing in someone else telling me that they believe in me and that, you know, they have hope for me, because if they see that in me, then like it's got to be in there somewhere, you know?
So well said.
Thank you so much for coming. This was such a nice conversation.
This really was. Like, I am inspired. I'm in awe of you. I think you're so incredible.
Thank you.
I love that we got to talk about this.
Too. Okay, I ask everyone who comes on as their last question.
Yeah.
Looking back at your own healing, everything you've been through, the way you felt at a young age and getting through school and finding DBT and spirituality and like working with people, but also like the ups and downs of your healing. Yeah. How do you see it all?
I've come to learn, and I genuinely mean this, and I know it's going to sound cliche, but the big feelings that once felt like the biggest curse have now felt like my biggest superpower. And I have been able to see that the ups and downs have kind of brought me here. So,
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I'll ask you one follow-up question to that. How do you think it's become your superpower? Because I think what you're saying is very relatable. I think a lot of people feel that their emotions are too much, or that they see the world in a way that no one understands, or that no one's ever going to see them. How have you utilized, feeling deeply?
I've learned how to harness it. I've learned for my emotions to not control my life, but to direct my life. And I still get to be the one that calls the shots and chooses where I go, but I let my emotions be the fuel behind it, which I think is a game changer.
So beautiful. Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Please share where people can find you and maybe where people can work with you too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So everybody's welcome to follow me on Instagram, Therapist in NYC. People are welcome to reach out, call or text 646-494-2653, or they can email me at Aliza, ALIZA, at therapyinthecity.org.
Love. And I'll put everything in the description before. Amazing. You guys are across states.
Yeah, we're in person in New York, LA, and Miami. And then we're licensed in about 6 other states as well across the US.
Congratulations on everything you've built. Thank you.
Of course, this was so fun.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you leave here feeling motivated and inspired. Do not forget to rate and review the pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And don't forget to follow How I See It Pod so you can keep up with podcast updates and see who's coming on next. And if you're not already, come join the fam and follow at How Han Sees It. Thank you guys.